I stand by the floor-to-ceiling window of my penthouse suite, feeling the smooth silk of my blouse slide over my arms as the city lights blink like tiny fireflies below. The hum of the elevator far beneath reminds me that this world is bigger than any grudge, any slight I ever carried. Yet, despite the view, the marble floors, the soft whisper of the AC, my chest tightens when my phone vibrates. It's a message from my brother, Jason, the one who laughed when I said I'd make something of myself after they took my bed, the bed my parents had promised me, the one they gave to him instead. I stare at the words on the screen. Can we talk? About the hotel? My lips twitch with a mixture of amusement and irritation. The irony isn't lost on me. The very people who dismissed me now want a piece of the empire I built from scratch. I take a slow breath, fingers tracing the edge of the phone. Memories creep in. How my hands shook when I was younger, how I traced the edges of that bed in my childhood room, wishing for some sense of ownership in a family that never understood me. A small smile tugs at my lips, quiet and knowing. They think they know me. They think they see the same girl who cried in a corner after a family argument. What they don't know is that girl no longer exists. She's replaced by someone who owns buildings, staff, and entire hotel chains, who turns rejection into motivation, who learned that sometimes the world takes your bed, so you can own the hotels. I tap reply, my fingers steady. Sure, Jason. Let's talk. I still remember that night like it was yesterday. I was 15, curled up in my tiny bedroom, clutching the blanket that smelled faintly of lavender. My parents had argued in the hallway, voices sharp, echoing through the thin walls. I didn't understand all of it then, but I knew one thing. My bed, the one I'd picked out myself, decorated with posters and fairy lights, was being reassigned to Jason. I'm sorry, Emily, Mom had said, her eyes avoiding mine. It's just he needs it more right now. The sting of those words pierced deeper than any slap could. My hands shook, fingers gripping the edge of the mattress, as if holding it tighter could make it mine forever. I remember the lump in my throat, the tightness in my chest, the way my heart thumped like it would escape my ribcage. I had never felt so small. Grandma Ruth's words came back to me that night. She had always sensed when I felt invisible. She'd leaned down, resting her frail hand over mine. Emily, she whispered, the world might take what you love from you, but it can never take your fire. Keep it burning. One day, you'll show them what's yours. I clung to that advice as I lay on the cold floor that night, staring at the ceiling, plotting my escape. Not from home, but from their limited imagination of who I could be. That bed wasn't just a mattress. It was my first lesson in resilience. It taught me that sometimes people will dismiss you simply because they can, and sometimes the world will laugh when you dream. But if you hold on to your spark, if you move with quiet determination, you'll carve out a place for yourself they can't touch. By morning, I had made a decision. I would leave behind their doubts, their comparisons, and their unfair judgments. I would take my passion and turn it into something tangible. Hotels, hospitality management. It didn't matter where I started, but I knew I had to start somewhere. I promised myself that I'd never again let anyone make me feel less than capable, and I'd prove it not with words, but with results. The memory of that bed, the unfairness, the tears, it became my compass, the silent fuel that pushed me forward every time I felt small. I remember the first time I stepped into a hotel lobby not as a guest, but as someone who wanted to learn how to run the place. I was 18, suitcase in hand, nervous energy buzzing through me like electricity. My mentor, Claire Whitman, a seasoned hotel manager with an eye for detail and a heart bigger than the suites she managed, welcomed me with a firm handshake and a smile that made me believe I belonged before I even knew it myself. Emily, she said, the world doesn't give out second chances. You make them for yourself. That phrase became my mantra. Every long night at the front desk, every cleaning shift when no one else wanted to touch the carpets, every spreadsheet I stayed up late learning to master, it all added up. Small wins became proof that I wasn't invisible anymore. I landed my first client at 22, a boutique hotel owner who trusted a scrappy, determined girl with little experience, but a lot of fire. I remember the thrill of seeing my first profitable contract signed, feeling a mixture of disbelief and pride. Money came slowly at first. I'd hide the truth from my family, posting modest updates on social media while secretly negotiating leases, remodeling properties, and building my network. I'd sometimes glance at old photos of that stolen bed, feeling the old ache, and then chuckle at the irony. They thought that act could define me. In reality, it fueled me. There were nights I questioned myself, wondering if I was too young, too inexperienced, too overlooked. But Claire's voice was always in the back of my mind. You make your own second chances. I poured every ounce of energy into learning, into growing, into proving to the world, and more importantly, to myself, that I could create something no one could take away. By 25, I owned my first property outright, a small boutique hotel in Chicago with worn carpets, but heart and potential. I revamped it meticulously, choosing every paint color, every piece of furniture, and every tiny comfort for my guests, as if designing a sanctuary I once longed for in my childhood bedroom. Each successful opening, each satisfied client, each glowing review was a quiet victory against the doubt they'd planted in me. I kept moving quietly, but decisively. By 30, I was managing a chain of boutique hotels, quietly acquiring properties, slowly building an empire under the radar. No one in my family knew. Jason still assumed I was getting by. Mom thought I was working some dead-end management job. Dad dismissed my occasional calls. I let them underestimate me. I let them believe I was small. And all the while, I reminded myself why I'd started. The stolen bed, the humiliation, the loneliness, they were the invisible hands that pushed me toward this path. Every late night, every early morning, every tiny victory added fuel to the fire that would one day engulf every hotel, every property, every expectation they had ever placed on me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was quietly, methodically, and unapologetically winning. The day they showed up at my flagship hotel, I had already known it would come eventually. Jason, Mom, and Dad, expecting to see the same Emily who had been struggling all these years. I let them think they knew me. I let them carry their assumptions all the way through the revolving doors, past the polished marble floors, past the lobby staff who greeted them with the utmost professionalism. I watched them from my office window as they approached the elevator. Jason's shoulders were tense, a smirk on his face that didn't quite reach his eyes. Mom clutched her handbag like a shield, and Dad had that look, half curiosity, half skepticism, that I remembered from every family dinner where I'd tried to defend my dreams. Emily, Jason called out as soon as the elevator doors opened. I turned from the floor-to-ceiling windows of my executive suite, letting them take in the space before I said a word. The office was elegant, yet personal. A hand-selected collection of art adorned the walls, each piece a memory, a triumph, a lesson. My grandmother's silver locket rested on the corner of my desk, a quiet reminder of the words that had guided me through years of struggle. A sleek leather chair sat behind the mahogany desk where I now ruled my empire, and outside, the city's skylines stretched endlessly, proof that the world could be claimed by those who dared. "Hi," I said softly, letting the pause linger. "Welcome." They froze, mouths slightly open. Jason's smirk faltered. Mom blinked, as if trying to convince herself this was the same girl she had once scolded for dreaming too big. Dad's eyebrows shot up in surprise. I gestured toward the window. "This is just one of the properties I manage. The others? Chicago, Miami, San Francisco, and soon New York." Jason swallowed hard. "Wait, you own all of this?" I let the silence speak for a moment, savoring it, letting them feel the weight of underestimation. Then I leaned against my desk, smiling, not maliciously, but with a quiet triumph. "Yes," I said. "I own the entire chain. Every hotel, every property. And remember that bed? The one you took from me when I was 15? It turns out losing it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to create something bigger, something they couldn't take away." Mom's hand trembled as it rested on her chest. "Emily, I didn't realize." "Didn't realize?" I echoed gently, my tone soft but firm. You didn't realize what I was capable of, just like you never realized the potential in me. But that's okay. I've been doing fine without your recognition. Dad's jaw tightened, and Jason's eyes darted between me and the skyline. All these years, Jason finally muttered. We thought you were struggling. I nodded. And that was the perfect opportunity to work in silence. While you underestimated me, I built my life, my empire, my future. And now I get to decide what it looks like, including who's allowed to be part of it. They stood there, a mixture of shame, awe, and disbelief etched across their faces. And for the first time, I realized the full power of that bed, the one they had thought was insignificant, the one that had sparked my entire journey. I smiled again, quietly to myself. The girl who once cried on the floor over a stolen bed had become a woman who owned entire skylines, and they were just beginning to understand it. I motioned for them to sit in the sleek leather chairs across from my desk. The moment the door closed behind us, the air shifted. This wasn't a family dinner anymore, it was a reckoning. I held the upper hand now, not just because I had built what they never believed I could, but because I had learned to carry my power with grace. Before we talk about anything else, I began, letting my voice be calm but unwavering. There are a few things you need to understand. And a few conditions if we're going to move forward. Jason's eyes narrowed. Conditions? Yes, I said. You underestimated me once. I won't let that happen again. And if you want to be part of this, even peripherally, there are changes that need to happen. Not for me. For you. Mom looked startled. Emily, we just want to support you. I smiled, not unkindly. I know. But support without growth is meaningless. Dad, you need to let go of that constant need to control outcomes. Your ideas about business are outdated, and your fear of failure has held you back in ways you don't even see. If you want to be part of this, you'll take a management course with Claire and me. You'll learn to let go of the old habits and embrace leadership properly. Dad shifted uncomfortably, swallowing hard. Mom, I continued, you've spent years projecting your fears onto me. You need to let go of judgment. Learn to trust people, especially me. We'll do coaching sessions together, because this family doesn't survive on guilt anymore. We thrive on understanding. Jason's smirk had faded completely. I let my gaze settle on him. And you, I said softly, need to stop thinking the world owes you everything. You've had privilege handed to you your whole life, and it made you complacent. If you want to work with me, you'll start at one of the properties, learn the business from the ground up, and earn your position honestly. There was silence. Their pride and disbelief collided, but I didn't flinch. I had survived worse. I had lost a bed and gained a life. I had been underestimated and emerged unstoppable. I'm giving you this chance, I said finally, letting warmth creep into my tone. Because I care. Because I want the people I love to grow, not just to watch me win. But this isn't charity. This is about real change, accountability, and respect. You choose to take it or step aside. Mom's lips quivered as she whispered, We want to try. We really do. Jason muttered, Yeah. I'll do it. Dad cleared his throat, finally nodding. We'll follow your lead, Emily. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the shift in power, but also a deeper satisfaction. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't gloating. It was reclaiming what was mine, while offering the possibility of redemption and growth for the people who once dismissed me. The fire that had burned silently since that stolen bed now radiated outward, not just as success, but as strength, wisdom, and leadership. I had taken my pain and turned it into rules, guidance, and opportunity. And for the first time, everyone in this room could feel it, not just the weight of my empire, but the magnitude of the woman I had become. Weeks passed, and the changes were subtle at first, almost imperceptible. Dad learned to delegate without micromanaging, his once stubborn nature softening as he saw results without having to control every detail. Mom stopped questioning my decisions, replacing judgment with curiosity, asking questions to understand instead of criticize. Jason, the brother who once thought entitlement was enough, now spent mornings walking through lobbies, checking inventories, and learning the rhythm of a business he used to take for granted. I watched them grow and felt a quiet pride that had nothing to do with wealth or status. It was the pride of seeing people transform because they chose to, not because they were forced. The bed that had been taken from me years ago became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that life's smallest injustices can ignite the biggest victories. One evening, I found Grandma Ruth's silver locket sitting on my desk, the tiny inscription inside catching the late afternoon sunlight. "Keep the fire burning." I ran my fingers over the delicate engraving, remembering the night she whispered those words to me when I was trembling on the floor after losing that bed. The fire had never gone out. It had simply grown, fed by determination, patience, and quiet strategy. Looking out from my corner office at the skyline, I realized that every setback, every moment of doubt, every sting of rejection had shaped me into this version of myself, someone who could be both firm and compassionate, powerful and empathetic, unstoppable yet grounded. The journey had been long, and at times lonely, but the lessons I carried made the victories sweeter. I walked past the window to my desk, touched the locket one more time, and smiled. They understood now not just my success, but my story. They could see it, and perhaps they could finally respect it. And as I looked out over the city, the empire I had quietly built from the ground up, I whispered to myself, not for anyone else to hear. Sometimes they take your bed, but if you're willing to fight, to dream, to burn that fire brighter than ever, they can never take your life, your dreams, or the woman you've become.